Okay, it is April the 10th, 8 p.m., and this is the MELS 601 Clinical Coach session. And welcome, everybody. I hope you all had a good week. I know many of you are looking forward to spring break next week, so got just a few days, and you get to do some things that you need to do and want to do, I hope. Tonight, if you look on the schedule, I really didn't put anything on the agenda other than, TBD, to be determined. So I thought tonight could just be a question answer session. There are a couple of things that I want to go over that I've noticed lately that I think would be good to mention to everybody. So let me mention those two things, and then I'm just going to open it up for questions after that. On your task 5, I just want to make sure that this is clear. When you look at task 5 is um, the reflection for your APSL. Now, and when I mean reflections, that is for the work that you have done in the APSL. You look through your competencies: communication, dialogue, conflict management, all of the competencies that we've been discussing. You look through those and you determine, with what you've done in the APSL, which one of those leadership competencies have you addressed? Communication is always the one I go to for an example, just because it's the first one and it's the easiest one. So when you talk about communication, talk about communication that you did as a leader in the APSL. And when you talk about these reflections for each competencies, how have you used this competency? How have you demonstrated this competency in your activities through the APSL, through your engagement of task 1, task 2, task 3, and task 4? When you reflect on that. You reflect on those PLC meetings, reflect on the conversations that you may have had with your principal or school leadership, reflect on the data analysis, reflect on forming the action plan. That's what you reflect on the APSL. I have noticed through a few of you that when you did your reflections, you reflected on your internship hours. And I just wanted to make that clear. And as far as your internship goes, you really don't need to reflect on anything that you've done in your internship. You just log that in any type of statement or reflection that you want to get. You can put it in the internship log. That's what that's for. The
Hey, can I come,
reflections that you do for task 5, those reflections are to go in as far as what you have done in the APSL only. So I'm going to pause for just a second and see if anybody has any questions on that, because I have had to give some feedback to a couple of you, and just to kind of direct you to, and I hate it. It was good reflections. I mean, what you wrote was great. But it was all internship hours activity. It wasn't anything that I could draw out that showed me that it was coming from the APSL. So are there any questions about how to do that task 5 reflection piece? Now, I have muted everybody, so feel free to type it into chat or unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, and if you're watching this recording at a later time and you have questions on that, please email me and contact me and let me know. So I feel like everybody here has got a pretty good understanding of that. And that's going to be the way for the rest of the program. And I think there's one, and I hesitate to say because my memory's failing me and I can't remember if it's the OMA. There's actually one, or the SCIP. There's actually one that you don't have to do a reflection task on, but every other, you especially will in the APTL in 602, you'll have that last task will be that reflection piece. And that's supposed to be the narrative that you would have put in with your artifacts. It's just a narrative, and some of you have included your artifacts, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to include your artifact in that reflection, this is what I'm talking about, that's fine. There's no problem with that. So I'm going to leave that subject behind unless anybody has any question on the task 5 reflections. Okay, I'm going to move over to task stream now because the other thing I wanted to talk about is your competency folio. And actually, I watched a recorded Zoom session that Dr. Lamb did. I think it was Monday night, but I wasn't able to attend because I was working with another internship group. But anyway, I watched the recording today at lunchtime, and Dr. Lamb addressed the competency folio, and once again, he kind of just mentioned to all the professors online that as far as your competency folio goes, it's just your artifact, just a screenshot, just a picture of an agenda, just a video clip. Somebody even uploaded the MP4 audio of a meeting. I thought that was great. You do not have to put anything in writing associated with it, but if there needs to be a sentence for explanation, that's fine. I think somebody uploaded one artifact. I can't remember exactly. It might have been a customer focus. I can't remember. And I didn't understand what the artifact was for and how it related. So I in the comment section, I said, just please put a simple sentence here explaining that. So don't feel like you have to write anything major, anything more than a sentence, or anything more than a blurb is not required. Okay, it's just for your competency. And the one thing that I wanted to address as far as your competency folio goes is keep in mind for each of these competencies, you have to give 3 evidences. And the guideline or the suggestion here is that one, in communication, these are just guidelines. And if you remember that sheet, you've also got a sheet that you were given that talks about how the competencies relate to each of the evidences. So these are just guidelines, mind you. But 2 have to be from your evidence. 2 have to be from, as you go through the program, 2 have to be from your evidence, and only 1 can be open-ended. So I noticed some of you have done some open-endeds for this first round. That's fine, but just know if you do an open-ended artifact that's not related to the evidence, and in this case it would be the APSL, that's not related to the APSL, then for the remainder of the program, the other 2 artifacts that you have to submit for, in this case, communication, has to be from an evidence. That's the requirement. So you're free in kind of which evidence that you choose to upload an artifact from for each of these competencies, and you've got some flexibility with using the open-ended. But as the old cliche goes, if you play that card now, you can't play it again for this particular evidence. So, or excuse me, for this particular competency. So for each competency, you submit 3 artifacts. 2 have to come from the evidences throughout the program. 1 can be open-ended. So I wanted to go ahead and make sure that was clear too, and see if anybody had any questions in that. Okay, very good. Once again, if you're watching the recording of this and you do have a question, just email it to me. That's basically the 2 things that I wanted to go over tonight. Some of you are already done. Some of you have submitted your APSL. Some of you have got the evaluation score back. Some of you have done your competency analysis and your school of ed dispositions, and you're done. Some of you are just turning in task 2 or task 3 of that APSL. If there was any update that I needed from anybody, I sent you an email today. So if you didn't get an email from me, then I feel like you're in pretty good shape to finish the course. As I said earlier, I know next week is spring break, and I'm sure a lot of you plan on getting a lot of that wrapped up. And by the end of next week, you pretty much need to be done with the APSL. I'm not giving you a hard, fast date on when to turn that in. I'm just kind of leaving it up to you as a leader to determine what you need to get done when. But that next week's pretty much, we only got a few more weeks left in the semester. So you got to have time for the absolute to be uploaded to the evaluator. The evaluator, as I'm sure you can imagine, just like a lot of times with your students, you may have several students turning in some things at the last minute. So that means that you're going to have to spend that evening grading, or maybe even that weekend grading, to get them all in before grades are due. And that happens in this program as well. I think it's common throughout education, actually. But as you can imagine, there are going to be several people submitting here towards the end, especially in 601 as you get used to the process. There can be a little bit of a bottleneck as far as APSLs getting uploaded. And so the evaluators are going to be pretty busy at this time. So I would go ahead and get that in as soon as possible, because you got to give them time to get it, evaluate it, and get it back to you. And if for some reason, if you have to do revisions, then you're going to need a little bit of window of time to revise, so you can submit it back to them so you can get the score of at least 3 or higher. If that happens, if you get the APSL back and the evaluator tells you that there's some revisions needed, you need to contact me as soon as possible. Contact me through Gardner Webb email and let me know. At that point in time, we'll either talk on the phone, we'll set up a phone conversation, we'll set up a Zoom conversation, see what that is, and get you in good shape to get those revised. Because you still have to do your school of ed dispositions, you still have to do your competency analysis, and you still have to submit your artifacts here in the competency folio, which should just be a matter of dragging and putting them in. As far as your competency folio, you should have already been collecting those artifacts as you went through the APSL, as I and I think Dr. Church recommended you to. Okay, as I was talking, I noticed some chat action going on in the chat box. Okay, let me look through the questions here, and I'll address them each. Okay, if you have not created your competency folio, your clinical coach one who came out and visited you should have created that for you. But I know sometimes they got out before you even in task stream. In creating your competency folio, there is a video in the video library. I think Dr. Church has got it in the course shell library, but I know I definitely got it in the internship library. And let me go over that real quick. You pull up the internship, you go into the video library, setting up your competency folio. There's a video right there that shows you how to do it, and that's how you set your competency folio. You really don't have to do a lot, because a lot of it's pre-populated for you, especially all the competencies. But that'll show you how to set up your competency folio. After you watch that, if you have any difficulty, get in touch with me and we'll help you get through it. Okay, let me move on to the next question here. Open-ended. Open-ended is anything, and there's a list of sample open-endeds. It should be in your syllabus. I know there's a list in your handbook of what open-ended is, but that's any activity, any leadership activity that represents one of these competencies that was not connected to the APSL or was not connected to the evidence. Let me think of one real quick. So if you, let's say you did a presentation to the Board of Education. Let's say you're working at a middle school, and the middle school is a leader in me school, and the superintendent invited you and your principal to do a presentation to the board on leader in me. So you go and you and the principal work together on that presentation. You go to the Board of Education, and during their meeting one night, you do that presentation. Well, that's definitely, you're definitely exercising some leadership skills there. And you could even say it was in communication or change management. Several would apply here. Results orientation, systems thinking, but it's not anything that you did in associating with the APSL. It was above and beyond, if you will. It wasn't anything associated with the evidence. Well, it's still a good example of a leadership competency, but it's not connected to the evidence. So then that would be what's called an open-ended. Kind of like you in a test, you do an open-ended response. It's not multiple choice or anything like that. The person taking the assessment gets to kind of, free will it, if you will. When that's what open-ended is, a competency. It's something that you've done that shows leadership, and related to a competency, but not related to anything that you did in one of the evidences. And in this case, it would be the APSL. Let's see, let me move to the questions here. Okay, can we use, one question was, can we use graphs, figures that we created or found as artifacts? Yes, you can if it fits into one of these competencies. If it does, if it's a good example of change management, maybe systems thinking, I think what may work with something like that. If you created some kind of Google Doc, and send it out to the PLC team to give you feedback on. That could be an example of technology. Could definitely be an example of visionary if you use those graphs or figures as you formed your vision or purpose for your PLC. So yes, it could be research-based strategies. If it's something you created based on the research, then yes. If it's just a copy and paste from the research, then no. It has to be something that you've created or that you facilitated or developed in association, like I said, in this case with the APSL. So something that you created, and it could be based off of research, but something that you created, developed, that fits your school, fits your action plan in the APSL. Is the competency folio due by the end of 601? Yes. As a matter of fact, your competency folio, and I know that maybe some clinical coaches do this a little bit different, but if you don't stay on top of this, then it will wear you down and weigh you down, especially as you get to the end. So the best thing to do is at the end of the semester, before the end of the semester, is go ahead and address those competency folios. It can be done on the last day at 11:59 p.m. That's okay, but you need to stay on top of that, and you need to do that. And like I said, it shouldn't take a lot of time on your part, other than going into the artifacts that you've already created and just uploading them into these competencies. Okay, let's see, looking for questions. Okay, I think somebody said the video was easy for the competency folio. Somebody gave an example, I believe, of open-ended open-ended artifact for your competencies. Thank you for doing that. Okay, one question. Let's see. Can we get an example of an artifact to support personal responsibility for performance in relationship to the APSL? Well, let's take a look at that. Personal responsibility for performance. Okay, proactively, and I need to take this chat screen off. Proactively and continuously improves performance by focusing on needed areas of improvement and enhance strengths, activity, actively seeks and effectively applies feedback from others, takes for full responsibility for one's own achievement. That's the action plan. That's as you were forming that action plan, as you were going through those evidence-based researches based on the need that you identified in the APSL, and you kind of talked through the action plan, because good, bad, or ugly, you're the lead in this group. You're the name that's going to be put on that action plan. And when you present it to the principal, you present it to the school leadership team, then you're responsible for that action plan. And so as you formulated that action plan, as you talked to your PLC, as you got feedback and discussed and made those changes, then that's part of personal responsibility for the performance. So how well that action plan is facilitated and implemented is all on you, because you're the one that started this. So that's an example. If you'll notice, it says evidence artifact one that's referencing the APSL when it does that, and that's an example of that right there. Or even the gaps that you identified in the second task. When you did that data analysis, you're the one that brought the data to the PLC team. You're the one that kind of set the parameters on what you wanted to look for. You're the one that kind of signed off on, okay, this is the gap, or this is the achievement area that we want to have a positive impact on. You're the one that facilitated that. So once again, that's your responsibility. It falls on you. So that's another example as well. And I hope that kind of answered your question or what you wanted. I'm gonna move back to the chat box. Okay, all right. I think I've addressed all the questions. I'm looking through it, scanning through them again just to make sure. Okay. Great question. Great question. So, and this, and I'm gonna just be frank with you. I have brought this to the attention of TaskStream several times in the area that the venue that I've been given to give requests. The use of artifacts and evidences is very confusing. And when TaskStream says artifacts one, they're actually talking about evidence one. So it's not talking about task one, any of the tasks in TaskStream. And I'm so sorry because this can be very confusing. Keep in mind this is just a guideline though. But where it says artifact one, yes, you are uploading artifacts here. You are uploading artifacts here, but it's artifacts from the first evidence, artifacts from the fourth evidence, artifacts from an open-ended action. So when it's talking about one, it's talking about the APSL. When it's talking about four, see APSL, APTL, OMA, CAAP. I think it's talking about the CAP. So it's talking about artifacts from the first evidence, from 601. Think of it in those terms. Artifacts from 604. Let's go to another one. This would be artifacts from 603, artifacts from 604. And they really need to clarify that. And I have been making that suggestion for several semesters now. So hopefully it'll happen. Hopefully it'll happen. And it's my fault for not making sure that you understood correctly. So that was a great question. I'm glad you answered. I should have went over it earlier. So that's on me. But just know that they are talking about artifacts from that particular semester. Now, this is good. I'm glad I hit on this. Okay, artifacts from 605. But we don't have artifacts from 606. Well, if you know, there are 6 evidences. So in 604, you actually do 2 evidences. You do the CAAP and the SCIP. The SIAP would actually be the 6th. And you can look in your handbook. You can look in your handbook and see which ones I'm talking about. Any questions about where to find that out at? Okay, yeah. Let me finish up with this. I hope I was clear, and thanks again. That was a really good question about this this part right here. So you can find out which evidences go under which semester in your handbook. And if there's a question about that and you can't find that, let me know, and I can even pull up the handbook here tonight and show you what I'm talking about if I was unclear on that. Okay, the next question was, can you go over? Can you please explain how to complete the DRF again, please? Sure. Okay, so I feel like everybody's in pretty good shape about when you go to TaskStream. You get all your tasks done, you compile them into one document, you put it into Turnitin, you get a grade back, and you get a comment from Turnitin that says something like, ready for TaskStream. So you take the APSL, okay, now what do? Okay, let me leave the competency folio. At that point, you go into your DRF. And your DRF looks like this. Okay, and here, well, actually, here's another example of where the competency, where the evidences come up in each one. I clicked on the wrong one. This is for the add-on. This does not apply to you guys, okay? So let me back out of that. I clicked on the wrong version. Okay, here we go. Okay, so when we're talking about those evidence, artifacts from evidence 1, which would be the APSL, artifact from evidence 2 would be the APTL, the OMA is 3, And 4, it's an SCIP and the CAP. That's where you have two small ones, and the SIAP is the last one. So in terms of task stream, with what we were looking a while ago in a competency folio, I haven't gotten to the DRF review yet. I wanted to kind of make sure everybody understood this. This would be number 1. This would be number 2, number 3, 4 and 5, and then 6. So that's what we're talking about here. Okay, getting back to the DRF. Once you're great and turn it in, you got a grade of 100. It says ready for task stream. You take your ABSL, that complete document, unchanged from turn it in, and you submit it here for the ABSL. So you submit it there for the, this is the direct response folio or the DRF. You submit it here. You will also need to do the competency analysis and the school of ed disposition, which are basically self-assessments in 2 different areas. Dispositions towards leadership, and of course this is asking you to respond to where you think you're at now in each of the competencies, and it's just a self-assessment. You just click met, not met, met, not met, and then score in the disposition is needs improvement, accomplished, or proficient, accomplished. I think that's what it says over there. But you just click on that, and that's just a matter of doing the self-assessments. That's all you need to do in the DRF. Then the other platform you need to work in is what we talked about earlier, and that's the competency folio. And you can adjust these. I mean, if you really want to get into it, there are some settings here that you can get in and change the colors, upload some background in this competency folio if you wish to. I mean, this is kind of how I did this one back in this example back in 2016. You don't do a dispositional folio anymore, so don't worry about that. But you can change the look of this however you choose to. So I hope that answered the question about reviewing in task stream and the DRF. That is right here, and this is where you upload the ABSL. You complete the self-assessment for the competency analysis. You complete the self-assessment for the school of ed dispositions, and at that point in time you are done with the DRF, and you can move into your competency folio. Okay, let me see what we got here for our question. The code, you don't, if you're automatically enrolled, which you are, you're already set up in task stream, you don't need a code. If I'm reading the question right. Atlas, won't you, if I didn't answer that question, won't you unmute and explain to me what you're talking about, because I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry, when you scroll down, I just seen it says, it was like yellow, and it had like a code on there on your screen.
Let me go back.
It was right there. Yeah.
Yeah, good question. That's for me. Enter my class code to bring that up.
Okay.
Yeah. That's not anything that y'all need to worry about. That's just mine's a little bit different, of course, because
okay.
Yeah, and I like the American flag behind you, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any other questions?
Okay, can I just go over it just real quick, just to make sure? I won't be long. So from the evidences, the competencies, we have to have 2 evidences from our ABSL. And then one can be the open-ended, which is not part of our ABSL. It could be part of the internship, correct?
I'm glad you asked that question, because it can be a point of confusion. You just have to do one artifact for not each of the competencies. Just, I think, what are they asking you to do? 13 this semester? 12. 12. You just have to upload one artifact. By the end of the program, you will have uploaded 3 for each competency.
Okay, I see. Okay. That was confusing, because I thought we had to have, I was freaking out a little bit.
Yeah, no, you just one one competency, the competencies that you address, like next
Right.
semester in 602, you'll do the remaining, what, 9 or 10 or ever how many that's remaining, and you'll upload one evidence or one artifact for each of the competencies that
Okay.
you've already not
Okay.
addressed. So by the end of the semester, all 21 competencies will have 3 artifacts in them, 2
That's okay.
from some of the evidences and 1 that's an open-ended.
Okay. Perfect. Okay.
Great. Okay. Any other questions?
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me hold on just a minute. I see another question here. Let me bring it up. Okay, let's see. Carson, or hold on. I'm getting off my track here. Hold on. Okay. There we go. Chat box. Okay. Is it okay to have 2 artifacts and 1 competency right now, as in maybe 2 for communication? You can if you want to, but by the end of the semester, you can't double dip, so to speak, for that semester. I mean, you can upload one more artifact, but you're still going to have to address another evidence of communication, what you did in another evidence. So nobody's going to penalize you if you put 5 artifacts up there from the APSL, but only one's going to count to satisfy the requirements. Somewhere down the line in another evidence, in the APTL or the OMA, you're going to have to give another example of communication, even though you may have put 5 up there for the APSL. It has to be out of the 3, they have to be different from different evidences from different semesters. Did that answer your question? Okay. Yeah. For the competencies that you are addressing this semester, the APSL, those 12, then you're going to have to upload a minimum of 1 evidence. Then next semester, you will have addressed the remaining competencies that you did not address this semester. So by the end of 602, you will have put at least 1 evidence in each of the artifacts. Now you're going to, in 603, you're going to start putting in your second round. And then as you progress to 605, you'll put in your third round, one of which can be an open-ended. But you can't put all 3 from the APSL and say, okay, I'm done. So you got to show that you have got communication leadership in different arenas, in different environments, in different activities. So the APSL, you could do it in the APTL if you wanted to. You could wait and put your second round in the OMA, but it has to be different. It can't all be from the same semester. You can't do, okay, I'm gonna do you could theoretically, with an open-ended, you have flexibility to pretty much do that whenever you want to. So yeah, you could do that within the semester, but for the evidences, for the first 2 that are not open-ended, they have to be from different evidences. In this case, the guideline, the suggestion is that in communication, you put the first one is from the APSL, and the 6th one would be from the very last evidence that you do in 605, which is the SIAP. So I hope I was clear on that. Let me look back at the chat here. Okay, great. It's not your failure to understand. It's probably my failure to explain it correctly. That's why I'm a visual person. So that's why I miss those face-to-face classes where we could all be in a room together. I've got the board up there. I can get the marker out. Or in my day, when I was teaching, we still had blackboards and chalk. And I could write and draw arrows. And, man, it was so much easier back in those days. So I'm a visual, like I said, visual learner. So sometimes it's hard for me. That's why you see me doing this a lot. It's hard for me to get it out without having something to draw on or show you. All right, so okay. All right. Alice, did you have another question?
I do, yeah. I was just trying to read everybody else's, and so I just.
I lost your sound. Let's see, Atlas, I think you left the meeting. Okay, it looks like Atlas has left the meeting. We'll give her a chance to come back on. Let me look at the other questions here. Okay. Oh, great, Levi, thank you. Yes, there are 11 different competencies listed in the table in your handbook. Therefore, you need a minimum of 11 artifacts by the end of 601. Correct. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Yes, that's correct. And then there's 12. Let me just clarify that right now so there's not a discrepancy. I always go back to the handbook and the rubric. I've got it right here in my Google Drive if I can get to it. Okay, let me pull that up. And here's the sheet that I was talking about earlier that says, okay, of the APSL, what competencies are addressed in the APSL? Well, in the APSL, you can address all of these competencies in the first task. In the task, you can address competencies 16 and 18. That's the ones that's listed in the competency folio. That's the one that's listed there. These are the competencies that's listed in your competency folio. These are the tasks that they address. So, and as open-ended, yeah, it could come from your internship journal. Okay, so let me get out of that. This should be in the course shell, and it's in my content. But in the rubric, okay, in the handbook, it does say 12. Now, if your syllabus says 11, which I think maybe there might be some syllabuses out there or handbooks that does, I would recommend that you do 12. Regardless, this is kind of like the internship log. There's really not going to be a grade on this until you get to 605. So like I said, at the end of 605, you will have had to address all the competencies 3 times. But I would stay in track with what the rubric says because that keeps you on track to finish on time. All right, let me go back to yeah, sure. Okay, that was a comment somebody had made about chicken salad. But anyway, let me get back to here. Can you share the document with us, please? Yeah, sure. And this document here. Okay, let me let me go over here. It should be in my. Okay, I tell you what I will do. I will upload that document, which it should be in your course shell. But just so you'll have it here too, is I will upload it in the content. Let me show that so you can see it. Okay, you should now be able to see content, and what I will do is I will upload it into content as soon as we get off the class, and I will email it to everybody. So that way you will have this document, and the document I'm talking about is this one right here. It should be in your course shell. You should have already had it. It may even be in your handbook, one of your handbooks, but just to make sure everybody's got it, I'll put it in the content tab in my internship shell, and I will email it to everyone in 601. Keep this with you because it goes through the APTL, the OMA, so on and so forth. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to the chat box. Okay, Atlas, I'm glad you're back. If you got a question, go ahead and come on board and let me know.
Okay, well, I think I got it. Sorry, my computer it crashed.
That's okay.
So when we turn in our competencies, like if we are, is it always open? Like it's like Blackboard. Do we just put in our APSL in there, and then the next semester go in there put the next evidence? I mean, or does it close?
No, it does. It does not close. The only reason that you would not be able to access that is if TaskStream did some kind of update, like they do with Power School sometime, or do some kind of data migration. That's very rare. So yeah, you can go in at any time and manipulate that. It stays open.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Let me see. Are there any other questions? I don't see any right now. I will take care of putting this document in the internship shell and forwarding it to you or send it to you via email. I wanted to pull up, I think we're on board. Are we on board to meet again? Okay. Just to let you know, we're heading to the woods. I'm on spring break too. I'm going to do some house chores the first of the week. I got a few trees I need to cut down and some other odds and ends need to be taken care of. But my wife and I are heading to the mountains Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, coming back Sunday. Depending on where we're at, I may not have cellular service, so I may not be checking this until Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, even Monday morning. But I promise you, I'll do my best Monday and Tuesday of next week, and sporadically as I can towards the end of last week. But definitely that Monday morning, I'll come online and I'll give feedback, give suggestions, grade, do whatever I need to do to address anything that you've done last week. So I will try to check my email when I can too, but just know, I know we've got a 24 to 48 hour guarantee on turnaround. May not be able to make that next week depending on where we're going to be at and if there's cellular service. I just want to let everybody know. But I haven't dropped off the face of the earth. I'll try to check it as often as I can. But our next meeting, looks like Dr. Church is going to be meeting with you possibly on the 24th. No Zoom meeting next week, but that's a great time for everybody to catch up, to kind of finalize everything, put it behind you and catch a breather. But on May the 1st, we have a joint Zoom session. We may or may not have that depending on the needs of the group and where everybody is at, but that'll certainly will let you know about that. If you feel like we need to have one closer to that time, just let us know, and Dr. Church and I both will be happy to get on board and have that meeting. I saw one comment in the chat. Check. When does the summer session start? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I would have to go on the schedule and take a look at it. I'll tell you where you could find out. If you go to Looking Glass, which I think yours is the same as mine, there's a calendar here, and it will tell you when Easter break is, when summer session begins. Your would be graduate school would be the one that you would focus in on, that tells you when that semester starts. Since it's summer, how do we do our internships? I addressed that in a earlier. It's a great question, but I'd mentioned that in an earlier webinar, maybe the last one. But you're still going to have to get those 80 hours in during the summer. So during those work days, you could do some volunteer work or do some things at the school then. We had to do internship hours when I was coming through the master's program. It's actually, we had to do more than what you guys are having to do, but I didn't have to do some of this other stuff that you're having to do either. I pretty much volunteered after the last required work day. I went to my principal and told him, hey, I'll work next week or the next 5 days, whatever you need me to do. And that's a busy time of year, as many as you know. And I knocked all my summer's hours out in that 1 week. So I got it done then. If you are having a hard time getting that, and maybe you're planning on going on vacation, I would pick 1 week out of that summer session that you just show up for school and just tell the principal, said, I'm here to get my hours in. What do you need me to do? Then if you have a hard time getting that completed, contact me, and we can work on we can differentiate according to your needs. We put it that way. So just contact me, not now, but during summer semester. If you're having a hard time getting those 80 hours in during summer semester, contact me and let me know, and we'll work together to make sure you can get it knocked out. Yeah, it does not have to be at your school. If there's one question came up, or one statement from Atlas, if you're a high school teacher and you want to jump down to the middle schools and help with some of the transition stuff, help with registration or scheduling, or moving folders, bringing the cumulatives up from the middle school. Yeah, definitely do that. If you're in a middle school and want to go to the high school and help out, or if you're elementary school, want to go to the middle school, does not necessarily have to be in that, but wherever you're at, your site supervisor has to sign off on it. So just make sure if you're at the high school, go to the middle school, that your site supervisor knows about it. He's communicated or she's communicated with the middle school principal, and they're okay with it, and your site supervisor signs off on it. No matter what you do and where you do it, sign off on it. If you're working out with your site supervisor and any of you ever want to come to Wilkes County School Central Office, I could use some of your help. We're getting monitored in our federal programs next year, and I'll definitely put you to work with some internship hours. You guys want to drive to Wilkes County, we'll let you do some internship there in the central office, and you can help me get me prepared for that federal monitoring next fall. I was joking. I'm not going to ask anybody to drive to Wilkes County. But anyway, you can do that. You can do that. Just if you have a hard time figuring that out, let me know. All right. Any questions? And hey, that is a good point. Check with your central office and volunteer there. Go to the lead, the director that's over your particular program, and say, I've got to get some internship hours in. What can I do to help you? So go up there and do that. I know the central office would definitely love some help. If they don't, I'd be very surprised. All right. Any other questions? Okay, let me check the chat box here.
I have a question real quick. So the evidence or the competencies for the summer, I know we had a lot we could choose from, but is it okay if we repeated some of those? Like if we had 2 or 3 of the same, like communication or, what I'm talking about? I'm
not following you. The audio broke up a little bit, so I might not have heard everything you said.
So that, the 80 hours that we're doing right now, we can choose from a variety of competencies, but in the summer, there's a lot of those we can't do. Yeah, so can we use, if we repeated some like communication, or can we use that 2 or 3 times for the summer? Because there's a lot to do, like as far as PLCing and all that stuff,
Yeah, a good question. Yeah, you can. For internship hours, you can repeat as many times as the occurrence. Now, we're talking about the internship log. We're not talking about the competency folio. We've already had that conversation about the parameters there. But on your internship log, yeah, you can demonstrate the same competency over and over and over if it offers the new leadership experience for you. Yes. There was a good question that, can we start now if we have our 80 hours in for this semester? If you've already got your 80 hours in for the spring and you're doing some things at school, go ahead and working towards next year, then yeah, I'll go ahead and take those internship hours. So you can go ahead and start working now with the idea that it's something that's preparing for the next year. You can go ahead and start your next set of 80 hours now, as long as it's preparing for the upcoming year. That was a great question. All right, any other questions? This was a good session. There were some good questions. I'm glad we had the opportunity to clarify some of this thing. And keep in mind, in 602, it's all going to be routine for you. We've already this is the huge learning curve here. You get into 602, it's going to be a little bit of a lighter load. Yeah, it's a little quicker of a semester in the summer, but it's a lighter load as well. So I think this was a good session to clarify some things. On my to-do list, I've got the document that I showed you in my Google Drive. I will upload that to the content tab in the internship shell. I will also send it to you via email. Is there anything else before you go? Because I'm getting ready to sign off. Okay. As always, you guys stay safe. I hope your family stays safe. And I know some of you got a lot of work to do next week, but take some time to kind of enjoy the weather and the springtime, and spend some time with those people that you love. God bless you all. Stay safe, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.